Welcome back to the channel. Today's build is going to focus on the Heart of Inmost Light. So let's take a look at the exotic armor details. Heart of Inmost Light is an exotic Titan chest piece with the exotic trait Overflowing Light. Using an ability, Grenade, Melee, or Barricade empowers the other two abilities. Empowered abilities have faster regen, melees and grenades do more damage. Ability use grants empowered for other abilities for 5 seconds. So what does this actually mean? What it actually means is that empowered melee times 1 or times 2 will give you a 10% or 20% increase in damage. Times 1 empowered melee will give you 400% additional base regen, and times 2 will give you 800%. Grenade is similar with the 400% and 800% additional base regeneration when you're empowered times 1 or empowered times 2, but grenades are going to deal 20% additional damage at times 1 and 35% additional damage at times 2. Empowered Barricade times 1 will give you 25% additional base regeneration rate, and Empowered Barricade times 2 will give you 50% additional base regeneration rate. So essentially using one ability is going to buff the other ability. Let's say we use a grenade, then our Empowered Melee buff and Empowered Barricade buff will then show up. If we happen to use another ability, we could get these additional abilities up to times 2 depending on which ability we use. I'd rather show you in an example in the footage rather than kind of explain it just by voice alone. Here I am in the Root of Nightmares. I'm going to use my grenade ability. So I have Empowered Barricade and Empowered Melee times 1. I use my melee, and we'll see that my barricade is empowered times 2. And then I have empowered grenade times 1 because I haven't used it yet. Use my grenade, now I've got empowered melee times 2. Anytime anything hits times 2, you're getting that maximum efficiency of the additional base regen. And now on to our first aspect, Tectonic Harvest, and it provides 2 fragment slots. Tectonic Harvest states that shattering a stasis crystal creates a stasis shard. This shard grants melee energy when picked up by you or your allies. Therefore, to synergize with Tectonic Harvest aspect, we're going to run the Glacier Grenade ability on this subclass. Glacier Grenade states that it is a grenade that creates walls out of stasis crystals to block damage and freeze targets. These walls can be shattered for damage. So let's take a look at Tectonic Harvest synergizing with stasis shards from our Glacier Grenade. When we throw the Glacier Grenade, we're going to create a stasis crystal. All stasis crystals last for 15 seconds. Now, this is purely a demonstration here where I've frozen the clip essentially or slowed it down so much to last 15 seconds from the time that I threw that initial Glacier Grenade. So it does create a wall for us, but what it's also going to do is it's going to provide 5 stasis shards to synergize with that Tectonic Harvest. I'm breaking each one of these 5 crystals, and you'll see each time I break a crystal, I'm making a stasis shard. So while the crystal lasts for 15 seconds, each one of these stasis shards is also going to last for 20 seconds. So we have a lot of leeway between our Glacier Grenade, how long it lasts, and how long the shards last after we break parts of the Glacier Grenade crystals. And there's no time change here. I'm actually just letting these disappear naturally as they would when the 20-second timer is expiring. Also important, as we mentioned, that these provide melee energy. So while each shard lasts for 20 seconds, we're also going to be able to collect them and provide ourselves 10% melee energy. Here's a demonstration of that. As I break each one, I'm going to walk over it, collect the shard, and then gain 10% melee energy. So technically you can gain 50% of your melee energy back by breaking all 5 crystals in a Glacier Grenade. Our second aspect of the build is Howl of the Storm, which provides 2 fragment slots. Howl of the Storm states that while sliding, activating your charge melee will launch a wave of stasis energy forward that freezes targets and creates stasis crystals. So let's take a look at this. I activate my charge melee while sliding, and it's going to provide 4 stasis shards when each one of the 4 crystals is broken that it creates. So therefore, that is a potential of 40% melee energy. When we combine that with the Glacier Grenade's 50%, we're almost at 100% of our melee energy return just by activating our grenade, breaking the crystals, and using our melee and breaking the crystals. So here's some gameplay footage. Essentially what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to freeze and shatter. That way we can repeat that loop. I activate my charge melee there while sliding. I'm breaking the crystal, and it's also shattering the enemies that are near me, which is going to create those stasis crystal shards that we're going to be able to pick up. Now, there is a base melee in the kit, but most of the time you never really want to use this base melee unless you know that you can guarantee a kill with it, because otherwise you're going to be wasting an empowered ability that you could actually take advantage of by creating either stasis shards or empowering your other abilities by dealing damage with that melee. When that charge slide deals damage, it will buff your other abilities. Let's take a look at the stasis fragments that we're going to be using in this build to perfect it and make it the most powerful it can be. Our first stasis fragment is Whisper of Rime. Collecting a stasis shard grants a small amount of overshield, which falls off after 10 seconds. Collecting additional shards adds to the overshield and refreshes the timer. So fragment number 1 of the build is Whisper of Rime, where we gain health and overshield from collecting stasis shards. We've already showed 2 ways, the Glacier grenade, as well as the charge melee from Howl of the Storm aspect, to be able to gain some overshield and health from collecting those crystals. I'm using it here against this barrier champion to really get aggressive because I have a full overshield against him. Here's an example of the stasis shards in effect. I'm really just letting this boss here of the Lost Vector kind of wail on me, as well as the other ads that I've left up, and I'm just really going in through my stasis abilities to generate stasis shards, collect them, and regenerate health and overshields. And eventually at a certain part, I go from red in my shields and health to all the way to an overshield, which kind of demonstrates both the power of Heart of Inmost Light paired together with this Whisper of Rime fragment and Tectonic harvest. And right now on my build, I only have 70 recovery because I'm able to capitalize on these stasis shards. So it's definitely not my recovery that's helping here. So that was just a normal difficulty Lost Sector. I'm going to bump it up and we're going to go in the Master Lost Sector here. And you're going to see the Power of Rime. Now, Behemoth is a class that favors calculated aggression. Once you understand the kit and the subclass in general, how everything functions, you're able to take your aggression, calculate it effectively, and really dominate your opponents. This part of the Lost Sector is notorious because it has 2 anti-barrier champions up top, the boss, as well as his 2 guards that come with him. And then once you get the boss to a certain HP percentage, like I'm about to do right here, 2 unstoppable champions will spawn out of a doorway. And so this is a lot of enemies, so I'm really capitalizing on my aggression here effectively with these stasis crystals, really playing off of the overshield and the shattering of the stasis crystals here to really take advantage of the kit. So without Rime and without Tectonic Harvest, I really wouldn't be able to do this, and especially not without Heart of Inmost Light. So it all is working together here to make us a very unstoppable and powerful Behemoth. So the next fragment of the build is Whisper of Fissures. Whispers of Fissures improves the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target. A lot of times this is going to be really helpful just for taking care of enemies like unstoppables that you may have frozen inside of a stasis crystal, and to take advantage of using the Howl of the Storm aspect. Every time you're shattering this, you're going to be creating a lot of damage that's going out. So this is actually going to help because we're making so many crystals with this build with the Glacier grenade and the improved uptime of that Glacier grenade, as well as the melee from Heart of Inmost Light. The more that we destroy, these bursts are going to occur from the stasis crystals, and that's just extra damage that's going out essentially. Now our third fragment is Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional crystals increases the duration of this benefit. So this is really important because what this is doing is this is capitalizing on synergy between this fragment and Heart of Inmost Light. So we're going to be able to shatter these crystals, which we know we want to do because we want to get Rime activated and get some health and some overshield, but we're also going to be increasing our additional base regeneration rate on top of what Heart of Inmost Light is also providing. So we're going to get a double dip essentially of grenade ability regeneration, which means lots of grenade uptime. We're always going to have these ready to go. Our fourth and final fragment of the build is Whisper of Chains. When you are near frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage from targets. And as I said before, that calculated aggression playstyle is really important because we're gaining additional damage resistance when we're by our stasis crystals. We make a lot of them, and that's going to actually help us out becoming more resistant to incoming damage. And a bonus to this is that this stacks multiplicatively with tier 10 resilience, providing us up to 58% damage resistance when by our stasis crystal. And next, let's begin talking about our helmet mods. For our helmet mods, we're going to be looking at orb generation and ammo finders. Helmet mods are pretty flexible depending upon what you're doing here. If you are running something like Ager Scepter, I would recommend running Harmonic Siphon, but with Volatile Flow on the artifact right now, Void Siphon is primarily what I'm running, so I can keep myself stocked up with orbs because of Volatile Flow. And next we'll move on to what mods we're running in our arms. On my arms, I'm running 2 copies of Grenade Kickstart and 1 copy of Impact Induction. With 2 copies of Grenade Kickstart on our arms, throwing our grenade with 0 armor charges will provide 17.1% grenade energy. And 1 copy of Impact Induction on our arms is going to provide 20% of our grenade energy when we deal damage with a melee attack. So when I throw my grenade with 0 charges, I'm getting 17.1%, and then you're going to see here when I get 4 armor charges with the 2 kickstarts and I throw my grenade, then I'm going to get 42.3% of my grenade energy back, which is really fantastic with Howl. Next, we're going to move on to our chest mods. We're going to be looking at AoE resist as well as an additional charge of armor charge with charged up. Personally, we prefer to run Concussive Dampener here because it does reduce the damage that we're going to take from AoE effects. We have a lot of damage resistance built in from having tier 10 resilience, as well as the resistance from Whisper of Chains by all of our stasis crystals. So what I prefer to run here instead of sniper resistance is Concussive Dampener because we're going to get up close and we're going to kind of brawl with this class. And lastly, that charged up allows us to get up to 4 armor charges to synergize with that grenade kickstart. The next mods we'll talk about are the mods that are on our legs. For our legs, we're running 1 copy of Innervation, 1 copy of Recuperation, and 1 copy of Stacks on Stacks. We'll break down next what each of these mods is going to provide for the build. Innervation is going to provide 10% grenade energy when we pick up an Orb of Power. And when we charge in with our aggressive playstyle, when we pick up that Orb of Power, we're not only going to get some additional grenade energy, we're also going to restore 70 HP upon picking up that Orb of Power. And Stacks on Stacks is going to make it so that when we pick up an Orb of Power, we're going to be provided with 2 armor charges off of that 1 orb. And last is our Mark mods, where we'll finalize everything for our armor mods on the build. For our Mark, we're going to be running 1 copy of Bomber, 1 copy of Outreach, and 1 copy of Reaper. Let's break down what these provide. Bomber will reduce your grenade cooldown by 10% after activating your class ability. Outreach will reduce your melee cooldown by 10% after activating your class ability. And lastly, we have Reaper for a way to generate an Orb of Power after utilizing our class ability. I know a lot of people think Stasis is not very good right now. Right now in the season, we only have Void and Strand as well as Solar Surges. But once we do get a Stasis Surge, you're really going to see the popularity of Stasis return, as well as Arc. So take a look at this build now, and think in consideration of how Bungie is going to be buffing Stasis Shards next season to provide armor charges, which is going to synergize so fantastically with this build. Thank you guys all for watching. I appreciate every one of you who has subscribed and who comments on my videos, letting me know positive feedback, negative feedback, whatever you may have. I appreciate it all. Thank you so much for your support. Have a wonderful day. Peace.
Make sure to like and subscribe.